Hey folks, this is Vince with Dad's Gaming Addiction, and today we're going to check out Clumsy Thief. It's a card game for 2 to 6 players for ages 8 and up, with the average play time being about 15 minutes. So this game is an extremely fast-paced, money-grabbing game to where players are trying to earn as much money as possible in order to win. And as the name implies, you're going to be taking this money from other players. So without further ado, let's take a quick look at the components and see how the game is played. Okay, so here's a very brief look at your components. You've got your box insert here. As you can see, it's designed to hold the cards as opposed to letting them slide all over the place. Speaking of cards, there are 94 cards, and they include these money cards here. You've got these thief cards, and you've got these jail cards. And of course, you've got an instruction manual over here. It's just front and back. Really simple stuff. Setting up the game is pretty simple. You shuffle the deck of cards, and each player receives 7 cards to form their starting hand. After that, players take a look at their hand to see if they can create any money stacks. If they can, they'll put them face up in front of them. A money stack simply consists of 2 cards that add up to 100. So if we take a look at this player's hand, this 45 and 55 add up to 100, so this money stack gets played face up in front of that player. And you've got a 70, 40, and 25 here, so none of those add up to 100. Okay, so that would be it for this player, and then each player, of course, would do that on their own and then play any money piles or money stacks that they can face up. Okay, so just to facilitate things, I went ahead and threw down some card stacks in front of each player, just to give you an idea of what it all might look like after everything is all set up. This player here has 1 stack in front of them from their cards, 55, 45. This player has a stack here, 60, 40. This one here, 85, 15. This one here, 75, 25, and 70, 30. Okay, and again, it's 2 cards that add up to 100. Whenever the dealer says go, basically it's a free-for-all. There are no player turns. Players are going to take a look at their hand and then try to place a card on top of one of these other money stacks in order to steal it. In order to do that, they have to sum up the 2 numbers so that they equal 100. For example, this 40 here could be placed on top of this 60 in order to steal it, because 40 plus 60 is 100. So let's say that this player is going to do that. He does that. 60 plus 40 is 100. He takes the entire stack, puts it in front of them, and they're trying to get as much money as they can from other players by doing this. You've got a 25 and a 70 here. Well, nothing in their hand will really add up to 100 here, so they can't play any more money. So maybe this player might take a look at his hand and say, oh, okay, here we go. This 30 could be played on top of this 70 over here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'll take this stack and claim it as my own. But then this player says, hey, I've got this 70, so I'm going to go ahead and play this 70 on top of that 30. That adds up to 100, so we'll go ahead and take that stack. And this will continue back and forth, and players just taking money from each other. Now, there are some other cards that you can play. You've got this thief card. You can play it on top of any stack you want to in order to claim it. Okay, something like that. And on top of that, you can play a thief on top of a thief in order to get it back. Once you play a thief on top of a stack, you cannot play any more numbers on it because there is no card in the deck that adds up to 100 by itself. Remember, you need 2 cards, one that you played and the existing card to add up to 100. Whenever you play a thief, that's it. No more money cards. But you can play a thief on top of it, and you can play a jail on top of it. Whenever you play a thief on top of it, you just simply take that stack. Whenever you play a jail on top of it, that locks it in. It can no longer be moved. So basically, you want to do this in order to keep stacks in your possession if you can. So those are the 2 special cards in the deck. But basically, most of these are money, and again, players are going to be playing money cards on top of stacks in order to steal them. Okay, so let's just say that we've reached a point where players can play no more cards. What happens then? Well, at that point, players will draw 1 card from the deck each, face down, and then all at the same time, they'll go ahead and reveal them and add them to their hand. And then when the dealer says go, they'll go ahead and just continue with the chaos. And basically, the first player to run out of cards will end that round. And then players will go ahead and count up how much money they have in front of them. The jails and the thieves are worth nothing, but the money stacks are. So players will take a look at these money stacks, count up how much money they have in front of them, and the player with the most at the end of that round will win. Okay, so there you have it, a very brief look at Clumsy Thief. It's important to stress that I did not cover all of the rules found in the manual. This was just to give you a general overview so that you could see how the game is played. As far as what I thought, it has some positives and it has some negatives. The positives is that it does encourage a little bit of math. So if younger kids do play this game, you know, they're constantly trying to come up with combinations that add up to 100, you know, between two numbers. But that's really where it can get a little limiting. I'm trying to phrase this as nicely as possible. I think that limiting this to 2 cards that add up to 100 can sort of defeat the purpose of learning math and being flexible in the first place. Because whenever you have, let's say, a 75 and a 25, a 75 would go on top of the 25 in order to add up to 100. Great. But then from there, a 25 goes on top of that, and then a 75 goes on top of that, then 25 goes, and then 75, then 25. It's the same 2 numbers over and over and over again. And that might help younger kids with the memorization process of adding up to 100. But what would be even more flexible and even more educational is if you included a way to add more cards to the mix, maybe by playing 2 cards so that they both plus the one on top adds up to 100. That way they could do a little bit more thinking in their head. Okay, 15 plus 15 plus 70 is 100, so I could play these 2 15s on top of this 70 in order to, you know, take that money stack. So that might be like something for an advanced rule set, if there is such a thing. Obviously, the game might be a little unbalanced if you do that, because players will probably run out of cards a little bit more quickly. One way to solve that, you know, deal more cards to each player in the beginning of the game, or possibly prevent players from playing extra money stacks throughout the game. One thing I didn't cover was that at any point during the game, if you do draw cards and you do have money stacks or 2 cards in your hand that add up to 100, you must play them as separate stacks immediately. So maybe by eliminating that rule, you can limit how many stacks are on the table, and then you know, using that 3-card rule or even 4-card rule, you can play extra cards so that they can add up to 100 instead of just using 2. So yeah, I mean, positives and negatives with this game. Very fast-paced, so yeah, I mean, if you don't like fast-paced games, if you want to take things a little bit more slowly, I suppose you could do that. Perhaps, you know, players could take turns in this game. You know, do you have any cards that add up to 100? No? Okay, then you move on to the next player. Do they have any cards that, you know, they can steal by playing a card? No? Okay, you move on to the next player. So I guess if you're willing to be creative and imaginative about this game, then you could alter the rules a bit, again, with the whole 3 cards instead of 2 thing, or by taking turns instead of it being a fast-paced. I suppose you could do it. Just be advised that you may, you know, break the game in some way or make the game a little unbalanced. I really don't think it'll matter much, because this game is not meant to be cutthroat and competitive. I think this is more of a family-friendly game that you would play with grandma anyway. So, you know, by altering the rules a bit to be a little unbalanced, if that does break the game in some way, I don't think anyone's really going to care. So, yeah, Clumsy Thief. Go check it out. If you haven't already, check out my written review on my official website, www.dadsgamingaddiction.com, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. That way you can keep up to date with any new content I happen to publish. This is Vince. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.